USA, USA, USA. Y'all, it went down. It went down. 1 second. It went down. Oh my goodness. Y'all, I should have went live that day, but I like to get all the information. Y'all, the way that our troops conducted that raid in Venezuela, I'm sorry. I'm an American abroad right now. It got me proud to be an American. You can't tell me anything about my country. You can't tell me anything about my country. Name another country that has done something as like ball to the wall as that. You know what? Let me get into my intro. My name is Mariah Sincere. If you are new to my channel, this channel is for people who know the story that we are being told is not the full story. I cover conservative politics, breaking news, and institutional power. I talk about this not to perpetuate the narratives, but to challenge them. I don't chase narratives. I analyze incentives, consequences, and what comes next. And y'all, I'm floored. I'm floored by what happened. So let me tell y'all how tonight's show is gonna go. First, I'm going to talk about the fact that Tim Walz has resigned from the governor's race. And then we are going to talk about the raid that took place in Venezuela, where the United States is going to go from here in terms of effectively managing that country. And we are also going to talk about Americans that are stuck in the Caribbean as a result of the airspace in Puerto Rico being shut down. So currently, right now, the airspace in Puerto Rico is shut down. If you are traveling to Puerto Rico or if you have any plans to Puerto Rico, I don't know, you might want to check on that. With that said, first up, let's talk about what happened with Governor Tim Walz. Shout out to Nick Shirley. If you don't know who Nick Shirley is, he is the YouTuber, some would say conservative YouTuber. I would say he's conservative. I've watched him long enough to know his views on things. But Nick Shirley has ended Tim Walz's career. Shout out to Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley has been doing the work of the Lord. If you have not been following my channel, I have reviewed several of his videos. Nick Shirley is the guy who broke the news about the Leering Center to us, right? And mainstream media, CNN, they tried to discredit him. They ended up looking foolish as they tried to call these daycares online and only one picked up, right? But he went to all these Somali-run daycares in Minnesota and he exposed the fact that it's a fraud. There are no children there. Right? Nobody's opening the door. They wouldn't even give him enrollment papers for his son when he asked. And I've never seen any type of legitimate daycare function like that. Right? So Nick Shirley put this on YouTube. Of course, it blows up to the point where he's even being interviewed by CNN. CNN comes in with an agenda to try to debunk him. His stuff is airtight. Here's the thing about the liberal mainstream media. They will try to convince you that what you see with your eyes is not true. Do y'all remember where was that? Was that in Ohio, where that Venezuelan gang took over an entire apartment complex? And they said, not happening. The local official said it's not happening, didn't happen, fake news. And you had YouTubers like Nick Shirley and Tyler Oliveira go on the ground and put themselves at risk interviewing people and getting the real story. And it completely blew the lid off of that thing. You know, it's a new day. Mainstream media is on notice. there are YouTubers like myself and others who sit up and we report the news or we give our opinions, but there are also YouTubers who are doing real investigative journaling, and they're getting in the field and they're asking the questions that the mainstream media won't ask because the higher ups won't allow them to. So, like, this is the age of Aquarius. Everything is being revealed. So, anyway, Tim Walz, let's get back to that story. I'm going to go to Cartier Brothers channel right now. Now, I heard early on in the day that he was considering resigning. And the crazy thing is, when he finally did announce, I went on the Shade Room, like Black social media outlets to see what people were saying. And like, people were disappointed. A lot of liberals are disappointed. I'm not saying outrage, or I'm not saying people have the attitude of, yeah, it serves you right because you allowed massive fraud to take place in Minnesota. It's like, man, this is my favorite dude. And I'm like, y'all, this man was about to be the president, like the vice president. Does that not scare y'all? Imagine the fraud that would have been running rampant had him and Kamala Harris been in office. They would have looted the treasury, y'all, on top of having a free-flowing border with mass human trafficking, mass substance trafficking. I mean, this country was at a tipping point. Yeah, so needless to say, me personally, as somebody who supported Trump during the 2024 elections, to me, this is vindication, because you were out of your mind if you feel like this would have been a better alternative. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm pulling up. Please hit the like and subscribe button and participate in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second. Ooh. Stop screen. Okay, so I'm going to the Cardio Family's channel, and we are going to watch this video they put together, and I'm going to react to it. Okay, here.
United States, demonizing our Somali neighbors and wrongfully confiscating funds that Minnesotans rely on. It's disgusting and it's dangerous.
Story this morning, Governor Tim Walz has announced he is dropping out of the race for re-election.
Oh, this is big, just within the last half hour or so. It's something we were tipped off to last night, but the governor made that announcement official here just earlier this morning. In a statement, he said, quote, "I've decided to step out of the race and let others worry about the election while I focus on the work." Adding, quote, "I know this may come as a surprise, but I'm passing on the race with zero sadness and zero regret. After all, I didn't run for this job so I could have this job. I ran for this job so I could do this job."
The governor also faced intense
I'm going to say this. If he really ran for the job so that he could do the job, instead of him cozying up to the Somali community and silencing the people in his administration that were coming to him and telling him about this fraud, he would have exposed them and actually ran. Like, the smart thing to do in that kind of situation is, I'm going to expose you, and now I'm going to run on stopping the fraud. No. He chose to be quiet. He chose to placate to these people who came over here to take advantage of the American taxpayer. And now he is acting like he's bowing out gracefully. No, sir. Hopefully he sees the writing on the wall. And one thing I want to say is, I want to see some charges. We have been seeing first with USA, nobody went to jail. Who went to jail? Nobody went to jail. And that was just basically a huge dim slush fund. Nobody went to jail about that. And in terms of government officials, people need to start going to jail, not just the average American, because the fact of the matter is, these lawmakers are the ones who enable these type of activities when they go to Congress and get these type of laws passed, or when they go to their state legislature and push these bills through with nefarious intent. So I want to see heads roll here.
National scrutiny over the last several weeks as President Trump and several others accuse the governor of being slow to respond to some of the fraud that's been going on, some of the alleged Medicaid and social service fraud. In his statement this morning, Walz saying, quote, "Make no mistake, we should be concerned about fraud in our state government," adding, "We cannot effectively deliver programs and services if we can't earn the public's trust." That's why over the past few years, we have made systemic changes to the way we do business.
One thing we haven't heard you specifically react to is the Minnesota fraud that we've seen play out.
Well, it just doesn't get worse. I've reacted. It's almost not even believable. This very stupid, low IQ governor, he's a very stupid man because, I had a campaign against him with JD. And he's a stupid man. And he's a corrupt politician. And the Somalians are ripping off our country to the tune of, looks like $19 billion, but that's only what they can find. So usually
Donald Trump is right. And I heard somebody, even as early as today, somebody was like, well, Tim Walz was a much better choice for vice president than JD Vance. How? Because JD Vance has not been embroiled in scandal. How? JD Vance is articulate. He's effective. He backs the president. And he's active. Like, he's out here doing work. JD Vance doesn't go missing. Y'all remember how Kamala Harris would just go missing for months? And it's like, what is she doing? Is she off somewhere getting drunk? No, he is actually doing his job. Like, you can tell he's preparing to run in 2028. He looked the other way. Without Somali votes, they don't win yet. And you know what the sad thing about all of this is? I fear that they have done irreparable damage. And this is why I say that. Like, yeah, we're going to be able to get some of these, indict some of these people on fraud charges. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of them have either been here so long that they've had children that have are U.S. citizens, or they have been naturalized. And the fact of the matter is, the Somali voter base in Minnesota is going to remain a huge voter base. And how can we trust them to turn over a new leaf and not support candidates who are doing them political favors and helping them loot the state and federal treasury? So my whole thing is, like, we can fix this problem now, but this is an imported problem that I'm not really sure that we can do something about in years to come. They can arrest the people who they can prove conspired in the fraud rings, but the thing is, this type of mentality, this type of cultural mentality has been something that they were practicing in their own country. And I'm not saying people can't change. I'm not saying every Somali was involved, but I'm saying even the ones who are not involved, a lot of them, you can't trust them to snitch, or you can't trust them to not partake, or you can't trust them to not look the other way. What if you have one that wants to run for office? Now, you winning your election is contingent upon you sweeping fraud under the rug or passing through bills that are going to allow mass fraud. So I'm confident that this is a problem that's going to go away. I'm just being honest about the situation.
when you look at it 19, that would mean it could be 50. But the numbers are astronomical. Think of it. They have a dead country. They don't have government. They don't have anything. They don't have a military. All they do is run around shooting people and trying to capture ships. You know, we don't let them take ships anymore.
Wow, guys. So 8 a.m. this morning, Governor Tim Walz is officially.
I would like to add this. A lot of people are upset about the comments that Donald Trump is making about Somalia. And to that, I'm going to say this. I'm tired of living in a world where we are pretending that different countries don't have different cultures and that they don't have certain aspects about their cultures that may or may not be negative. As an American, especially an American living abroad, I have to hear people talking mad shit about Americans all the time. And they do it with impunity. They do it thinking that because our country is richer than their country, or that because we're more privileged, that we should be quiet. Like, we should just let them say what they want to say and be blatantly disrespectful, and that we shouldn't say anything back. It's the same thing how y'all know how like a lot of it's become popular or funny to openly disrespect or name call or make fun of white Americans. Well, you as an American, whether you're white, brown, black, blue, whatever, when you leave the United States or you talk to people from other countries, especially people who are left leaning, they disrespect you in the same way. And you're expected to do what most Americans do. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize on behalf of my country. I will never apologize for being an American. Why would I apologize to you when, first of all, if my country lends your country money, I have nothing to apologize to you about. And like 99% of the people from countries that talk mess about us, they get government funding. The American taxpayer is bankrolling them in some way. You know, matter of fact, you should be thanking me. When you see an American, thank us, because you're not speaking German right now. You know, so I said that to say a lot of people get upset with people like Donald Trump because he's pointing out cultural norms that to us are negative because we don't engage in them in a macro cultural level, but it's normal in those countries. For example, people got offended when on Joe Rogan's channel, there was a soldier an ex-vet that came on there and said that in Afghanistan, it is normal for them to essay little boys. Are we supposed to not say that because it's racist? To me, it's not racist if it's true. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. If people don't like somebody saying that about your culture, then stop doing it. Just stop doing it.
Dropped out the governor race in Minnesota.
This is huge. This is huge. I would like to see some charges brought now. Since he's stepping out of government, are they still going to protect him? Because it seems at this point, where we're at in our American system, is what I'm starting to realize is that government officials can commit any kind of fraud, allow any kind of thing to go on, and face no charges, no repercussions. And Pam Bondi and Kash Patel said they were going to put a stop to that. They were doing all that barking. And I've said this like 3 times on 3 different videos. When are we going to see some charges? This is a tip of the iceberg. Nick Shirley, thank you. You ruined this man. Nick Shirley, gotcha. Now I want to see some charges. Now it's on y'all, Trump. Y'all talking all that shit. Let's see some charges, please. Please and thank you.
You know what's also crazy to really think about, when he had somebody that worked for him also committed murder too. There's been all type of stuff going on in Minnesota.
And that was the one woman who voted to not give illegal immigrants subsidies. She voted to not do that, and they killed her and her husband. So it's like, what's going on here? What's really going on here? Can we really understand the scope of the severity of the situation? Like that.
I have to pause here. Now, this is alleged, and I haven't seen the proof, but it is circulating across media outlets that Tim Walz's name is being brought up in the unaliving of Melissa Portman. Do y'all remember she was a Minnesota state legislature, and her husband were unalived in their house? And the initial story was that this was a radical, right-leaning Trump supporter. And then do y'all remember, to be honest, a lot of Democrats weren't talking about this online. This story was not, you knew it if you were in political spaces. You knew it if you paid attention to the news, but this wasn't something that got a lot of headway or was just blasted all over the media. And then y'all remember when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, all of a sudden it got brought back up because the narrative was Republicans or conservatives only cared when it happened to Charlie Kirk, but we didn't care when it happened to a Democrat, which, you know, I can pull the receipts of when I talked about her assassination on my channel. So I talked about it when it happened and I condemned it. And I saw other right-wing YouTubers talking about it too the day that it happened. So I don't know what they're talking about. Of course, we didn't necessarily have the same emotions tied to it because a lot of us didn't even know who she was, not in the same way that we knew who Charlie Kirk was. So it's going to make a difference. Impact matters, right? But now it's being alleged that Tim Walz had something to do with this because she cast a vote against a piece of legislation that he wanted to get passed that was connected to all this fraud in immigration. So that story is developing. This is all alleged. So as soon as I get more facts and more information comes out, I will come and give that to you. Guys, if you're just now coming in, please hit the like button. Also, participate in the comments. I love to talk. I love to chit chat. Matter of fact, at the end of the live, I'm going to let some of y'all come on here. I'm going to drop the link. And if you want to come voice your opinion, you
was brushed under the rug. I ain't heard shit about that since then. Like, I'm sorry I'm cursing y'all, but it's like, at what point are we gonna start seeing some hammer come down, some law come down? Because it's like, we follow the rules, we pay the taxes, we do all this stuff as citizens and law-abiding people, and we are not getting ahead while people come here from other countries, sit on welfare and finesse our country out of billions of dollars and nothing happens to them?
Almost 20 billion.
Trump said it could
Trump
be 50.
50.
Like, this is unbelievable.
We got foreigners in our government talking about their home country. That should never be allowed. No nation should allow that to happen.
Fly their own flag on the poles in our country is crazy.
Tim Walz said, I got this job to do this job, not to have this job. Buddy, you didn't do the job. People literally committed fraud in your state for billions, not millions. Billions.
Over 5 years.
It's interesting because we have liberals saying that this should be allowed. It's like, you guys are always talking about anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism, anti all these things, while our country is being pillaged for our resources by people who aren't from here and hate us and wave their flag and speak their language. It's disrespectful. And you know what I find?
Well, you know what the problem is? There are several problems with liberals. First of all, you have the majority of minorities, especially like when we talk about the Black community, which I'm a part of, are liberals, right? So we already feel like we're owed something because of slavery. Now, me, I never picked cotton a day in my life. And if I think about a lot of the problems that existed in my life, they came from the decision making of my parents and my grandparents, right? So any bones that I have to pick about the way my life turned out at this point in my life, now that I've matured, I guess I should direct that towards them. But even then, not really, because I mean, it's kind of like this. If you get hit by a car and let's say you break a leg or an arm, yeah, you might be able to get some money or reparations, but let's say it's a situation where it's a hit and run. Who is responsible for your healing at that point? You are. It might not seem fair, but it's the reality. And you can't just lay down and roll over waiting for the person who you feel like is responsible to come take some accountability. Because oftentimes you'll be waiting for accountability that's never going to come. That's just not how life goes. And in any event, Black Americans have had plenty of opportunity to succeed in this country. A lot of times we have been our own worst enemy. So you have a situation where you have Black Americans that are liberal. And then on top of that, you have the immigrants coming over here, especially the illegal immigrants who, and it's not even just illegal immigrants, it's legal immigrants too, because a lot of these legal immigrants feel like, okay, well, because of some Democrat sponsored program, I was able to come over here, so I need to pay that forward to the next immigrant, even if we don't necessarily need those programs at the moment. And then you have a lot of illegal immigrants who they actually might be very conservative leaning when they were in their country, but now they have to vote Democrat because of their immigration status. And then you have a situation where you have the white liberal women. And in my opinion, they're the absolute worst. And it's not because they're white. It's because they're the most vicious about it. So then you have the white women who have made themselves a minority, because they're women, and then they'll put something else in there, like now it's popular to have autism, or it's popular to be LGBT, or whatever they try to say that they are, non-binary. So now they get to separate themselves from white men who, let me be clear, I feel have no culpability in this situation at all, but it just kind of becomes a problem to where you have all of these people who feel like we have to band together and that America is guilty, right? And we're holding a referendum on the United States. We hate the United States, and we feel like because of the past of the United States that the United States deserves to be looted. That's how they feel. Like if there was a situation where it all crashed and burned tomorrow, as long as they're not in the vicinity, they would be happy there. Let them be in the vicinity, and then it's gonna be, oh my gosh, pure outrage. How did this happen to me? But as long as they don't have to suffer the consequences, they're gonna be happy about it. So yeah, they don't mind. First of all, the problem with this situation with the Somalis and in the Black community is that Black Americans, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, I love my people, but we're so desperate for belonging because we feel like we have no identity. We keep on perpetuating this narrative that we lost our identity due to slavery when we've had like 300 years in this country to develop our own identity, which we have. We just can't recognize it. We have our own cultural identity. Who cares what happened 500 or 600 or 1,000 years ago? Black Americans have a very unique, distinct cultural identity that has perhaps been one of the most influential cultures around the world, for good a lot of times and for bad, so but we have a very rich and unique identity, but we feel a sense of loss and desperation and a need to belong a part of other groups with which we really have no shared history with. So Black people think anybody that is of our same skin tone is a Black person, and we equate them to being Black much in the same way that we equate another Black person, like a Black American. So for example, a lot of Black Americans feel the need to tell Dominican people, you're Black, you're Black, you're Black. African people, you're Black. We feel the need to try to force them to be Black and claim our culture. So when stuff like this happens, Black Americans jump to the defense and they're like, oh, the president's being racist. And we feel like it's the same when they do stuff, when they commit that type of fraud. We feel like they deserve it just as much as we did for what we've been through. And it's like, no, they don't have a shared history with us. Let's be clear. America owes them nothing. America barely owes you anything, let alone them.
The most offensive, there's people like us, Black Americans, who broke the law and are sitting in jail for the rest of their lives ruined, gone forever. And now we got this other group of people who are Black, whatever. Yeah, and they're getting away with the breaking the law. Like, I feel like a lot of more Americans should be outraged about this. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't care. You should care. Because you, as an American citizen, could not get away with this.
And the fact that they tried to bring all these charges against Trump, ruin his political campaign, basically ruin America, because we would have probably not found out about some of this stuff.
Who knows where we would be
if Trump wasn't in office.
I wonder, was Tim the one giving the sauce out? He said, hey, y'all just make these daycares. Y'all make all these little buildings. We're going to send them money.
The Workers Association of Minnesota came out with a statement on X a couple months ago, as soon as this stuff started being revealed, saying Tim Walz was threatening people to shut up, coercing people to be quiet, tell them to keep their mouth shut. It's like, at what point are we going to see some repercussions for this stuff? I'm sorry, y'all. I just want to see the law come down. I want to see it.
It's Democrats who have put Somali diaspora in Minneapolis at the center of their party and their state's politics. It's a small portion of the population. There is a bunch of fraud that goes on. And even Tim Walz, it's Democrats who have, Democrats.
Honestly and truly, I feel like going forward, we need to have a different approach if we are going to continue to accept immigrants from other countries and from cultures that are much different from ours, we need to have a different approach. So, for those of y'all who don't know, I used to be a history teacher, and there was one part of American history, this was during the Gilded Age, where they were mass importing immigrants from Southern Italy and Ireland, and it was causing a lot of the same issues. I would argue now it's a bit more extreme because the cultural extremes are far more drastic. But what they ended up doing in places like New York is they forced them to assimilate. Like, yeah, they lived in their cultural enclaves, but they had to learn English, they had to take classes, they had to go to these community centers where they had to basically learn to be American. And that's why a lot of those people that you meet today, you wouldn't know the difference between a person of Irish ancestry and English ancestry. They truly did assimilate and blend and melt in, and it took time. Part of that is also not allowing immigrants to just bum rush all at one time. It's very hard to assimilate people into our culture if they can just go live in an ethnic enclave and only be around their kind, like in places like Somalia. They never really have to learn English. Versus if you put them in neighborhoods where they might be one of only a few families, and they're going to have to be forced to assimilate because they're not going to be able to survive unless they do. So going forward, I would like to see us change, not even necessarily just, for right now, I feel like we need to put a pause on the majority of the immigration, not all, but the majority. And then I feel like going forward, we need laws that help us integrate these people into societies to where it should never be a situation where you have an immigrant population that becomes a big enough voting block to where it determines a state election. That's absolutely unacceptable. Okay, so guys, I am about to move on for that, but y'all let me know in the comments. Do y'all think that Tim Walz resigning or stepping down from the governor's race, do y'all think that it hurts the Democrats? Do y'all think that this was a strategic move for them in the long run, or do y'all think that he was forced out? Do y'all think that he's about to come up on some charges? Y'all let me know in the comments. So next, I am going to show y'all some of the footage that has been circulating. And y'all probably already seen it by now, but I'm going to show y'all the footage that's been circulating in regards to the late night attack that happened in Venezuela. I'm going to show it to y'all now. And it's crazy because I was up at 3 a.m. and I saw it on TikTok, and then it was like it had came and went. Then by the time I realized it was happening, they had already snatched Maduro up. That's how quickly it happened. Okay. So I'm going to share my tab.
Veo en esta mierda, yo. ¿Qué? Esa mierda, marico.
I don't know if I can show this, but with the audio, because they're doing a lot of cussing, right? But basically, you'll hear them in the background talking. These are Venezuelans watching, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy!" They're saying a lot of expletives too.
Moscaí. Mira esa mierda, explotaron allá toda esa mierda, porque tú me estás explotando. Marico, se prendió el peo en esa mierda, ¿oyó? Huevo. Peo en esa mierda.
Okay, guys, so what's crazy is there's some comments on the side. Y'all can't see them, but I'll read them. This woman says, no, it's a guy. We true Americans don't support this. This is sickening. How are you a true American? What? I'm sorry. Another lady says this. Anyone understand that Maduro is a dictator who was not democratically elected? Maduro has had the citizens of Venezuela living in fear for all their lives. So let me say this, and I've talked about this before, and y'all know I'm coming to y'all from the perspective of growing up, and I'm African American, but I actually grew up in a Hispanic community. 1 second, hold on, what's going on? Wait, give me 1 second. Can y'all see me? I hope y'all can see me. What's going on? Okay. What's going on, y'all? Y'all know I'm technologically challenged. So I'm coming at y'all from a perspective of, yes, my mom is Black, my dad is White, but I grew up in Hispanic community. I started learning how to speak Spanish from a young age. In high school, I worked in a job where we would work with people. I was working at a mall, and at this mall, a lot of Hispanic people would come across the border, primarily Mexican, to shop. So I have to speak Spanish there. Then when I became a teacher, like 97% of my students were Hispanic. And then at one point for 5 years, I worked in a club that was Hispanic. And we had Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Venezuelans, everybody. And now I'm in South America. I was in Colombia for a year. I'm going back to Colombia. I was in Colombia for a year. And I saw firsthand the immigration crisis, the migration crisis that was caused in Colombia. We think we have it bad in the United States with the Venezuelans. No, in Colombia, it's bad. And they can't, if y'all think we can't afford it, they definitely can't afford it. And then on top of that, I just went to Peru, same thing. In Peru, there are so many displaced Venezuelans, and now I'm in Ecuador, and it's the same story. So as much as we've had to deal with that overflow in the United States, they've had to deal with it here as well in South America. And the main difference is that they don't necessarily have the same governmental protection. So, for example, right now, Donald Trump has been able to step in the gap and get a lot of the bad actors out. I'm not saying that all Venezuelans are. As a matter of fact, Venezuelans in South America have a reputation. It's like there are two sides of the coin. Either people consider them very hardworking, so employers prefer to hire them over somebody that is a citizen of said country, because same thing with what happens in the United States. Venezuelans are willing to do the job for cheaper, and they're going to come early, and they're going to stay later, and they're going to work harder. But on the flip side, you have a situation where a lot of these Venezuelan gangs were taking over these apartment complexes. So it's created a situation where it's like two extremes, and it's putting a lot of stress. The negatives are putting a lot of stress on the economies of these South American countries because they don't have the jobs to go around, much like we don't. And then I try to explain to them down here, y'all know in the United States, we don't have the jobs to go around either. I know y'all think we do, but we don't. It's well known down here. Everybody knows down here, this is not a myth, that Maduro emptied out his prisons and he was like, y'all can go, you just got to go to the United States. It's also well known that human trafficking and organ selling is a very real thing. It's a very real thing. Very poor families sell their children to the cartels to be trafficked up through the southern border, and that business boomed during the Biden-Harris administration. So it was imperative that we stop the flow of illegal immigration from the southern border because a lot of terrible things were happening. As far as Maduro, as far as everybody is concerned down here, I have yet to meet anybody in South America who is a supporter of Maduro. Never. I have never heard anybody sing his praises. Everybody I remember I was having a conversation with a Colombian. And in this same conversation, he was kind of trashing the United States. And I let him speak his piece. But towards the end of the conversation, he said he doesn't understand why the United States hasn't came and taken Maduro out. So as far as a lot of Latin Americans are concerned, especially South Americans, the situation has become so dire that they have been wishing for a very long time that the United States come assassinate Maduro. Now, I'm very glad that we took him in alive. I will be interested to see the testimony that comes from this, because I have some theories on my own as to why that border was allowed to be wide open, but we shall see. But Venezuelans were celebrating, okay? Let me pull up some footage. Give me 1 second. Guys, please, y'all hit the like button. Share my video if you care. I like doing these lives, but I love them a lot when y'all are interacting, when y'all are commenting. Thank you, Mitch, for commenting. So let's see how the Venezuelan people reacted.
Who's in charge of Venezuela right now? Have you spoken to the newly sworn in president there, Rodriguez?
We're dealing with the people that just got sworn in. And don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer.
Los resultados son irreversibles. Y ya cayó, este gobierno ya cayó. ¡Venezuela libre!
I'm overjoyed. I'm ecstatic. I'm Venezuelan by heritage. My family's still in Venezuela, and I've been looking forward to this day for so many years. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you, the United States, and God bless Venezuela. One day we will be free. One day we're going to have justice, and now it's finally no longer a dream, it is reality.
¡Que viva Maduro! ¡Que viva Bolívar! ¡Que viva la patria!
Y hoy aquí nos encontramos en respaldo absoluto a nuestro presidente constitucional Nicolás Maduro. Aquí estamos diciéndole al gobierno de los Estados Unidos que nosotros somos un pueblo de paz, pero que no somos, que no tenemos miedo y que
Okay, so we have a Maduro supporter. This black lady right here says that she supports her president.
estamos dispuestos a dar nuestra vida si es necesario para defender nuestro territorio.
Primeramente, nosotros no lo doblegamos. No es posible. Una persona que se
Hoy el pueblo venezolano se levanta indignado por los bombardeos a nuestra patria, afectando a nuestro pueblo.
I'm going to say this, and this might rub some of y'all the wrong way. I do not care. You will notice some similarities between the people that supported Nicolas Maduro and the people that supported, what's that man's name? How do I forget? Nicolas Maduro and not Che Guevara. Fidel Castro. Oh my gosh. Why did it take so long? I'm getting old, y'all. Okay. So, and I noticed this a long time ago, but I'm starting to notice this. People who are, let me be clear before I say this. Let me preface this by saying, in Latin America, Black people live very poorly. And Latin Americans will try to deny this fact, but there's a lot of classism. It's like classism first in Latin America, but then you'll notice it's not just classism because like all the Black people, majority of the Black people in Latin America live in complete squalor. I say this all the time. Black people in the United States don't know how good you have it. For example, when I go to the United States, it's nothing for me to see a Black person who is a doctor or a lawyer or owns their own business or is the manager somewhere or is a person of authority. When you come to Latin America, it's rare to see that. Most of the time, the Black people are the people that are in the kitchens, or the Black people are living just in such extreme poverty that's unimaginable. So when you have these leaders who are socialists, who are like, I'm going to give you free, free education, free food, like a lot of them don't mind standing and waiting in line for 3 hours to, get some flour because they were poor anyway and had a hard time affording food. So what this normally looks like is the people in these countries of lighter descent, I'm talking about my skin color and brighter, because even me, I'm kind of dark, for Latin American standards, but my skin color and brighter, what you'll see is majority of them end up leaving because they previously had access to more opportunities. Now, whether or not that was due, I won't pretend that from what I'm hearing and what I'm observing, it's far more difficult to have social mobility in Latin America, much like it's harder to have social mobility in Europe. It's the same way. We were colonized by two different people. So a lot of the times you will see minorities or the people of darker hues supporting these socialist communist dictators because they feel like even if it's low quality, at least I have access to or I'm entitled to certain things that I need to survive. And kind of like what happened when Cuba first fell, a lot of the people who suffered, the main victims of that were the working class business owners. And the majority of them happened to be lighter skinned and white Cubans. And so that's who came first. Even most of the Venezuelans that I meet that are displaced and are saying their lives are harder, they're the lighter skins. So I'm not explaining that as a justification for socialism. I'm just explaining the dynamics. Okay. Anyway, let's continue.
A nuestro país y para colmo de males se llevan secuestrado a nuestro comandante presidente. El pueblo va a estar en la calle resistiendo, exigiendo nos devuelvan a Nicolás.
So she is saying that we have kidnapped her president. That's also a term that a lot of the Democrats are using, and Donald Trump has a response to that. Let me say this. I know a lot of y'all might not believe in this, but I'm a true Gemini, and so I believe in it. And me and Donald Trump have like the exact same personality. We are the type of people will try to prep us and be like, no, you can't say that. But we're like, but why? Why can't I just say it? We are not the sugarcoat type. One thing about Geminis too is we might exaggerate, but about serious things or something where we feel like you need to know, we don't like lying. We don't like lying. And when we're put in a situation where we have to lie, it's very uncomfortable. We don't like it. And most of the time, if we do tell a lie, it's not because of us, it's on behalf of somebody else or to protect somebody else. We don't like to lie. So I'm going to show y'all what he said in response to people saying that he kidnapped the president.
Who's in charge of it? Venezuela right now. Have you spoken to the newly sworn in president there, Rodriguez?
We're dealing with the people that just got sworn in. And don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that
So y'all heard what he said. He said, don't ask me who's in charge because I'll give you an answer and it will be very controversial. He's not trying to lie. As a matter of fact, I saw when he gave his initial press conference, he came right out and said a lot of it has to do with oil. See, here's the thing. People are trying to make it seem like Donald Trump has some ulterior motive. He's been talking about this oil for a while now. And he's talking about it more and more. So anybody who is under the impression that oil was not a part of the situation is delusional. And anybody who thinks that they're going to use it as a gotcha moment or some type of indictment, you're just foolish. And I'm going to explain why later on.
Yes, we're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
We're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
No, I haven't, but other people
Do you want
have.
to?
Yeah, at the right time I will.
Do you see that pushback from Rodriguez and ultimately?
Well, I don't think there was pushback. I think that
She
frankly,
called it.
well, you hear a different person than I hear.
Really? So you have spoken with her?
We talked to them, yeah.
Oh, you did speak.
They've been very good.
Because she called it kidnapping of Maduro.
It's all right. It's not a bad term.
Trump said it's all right. It's not a bad term in reference to the vice president, who is now the acting president of Venezuela, saying that Donald Trump kidnapped the president. And he's like, gosh, fine by me, right? Call it what you want to call it. And here's my thing. This arrest warrant for President Maduro was issued during Joe Biden's term. Joe Biden had problems with Maduro, right? But it wasn't enforced. Okay? Donald Trump is saying, what is the point of us having an active warrant if we're not going to use it? Now, as far as the whole oil thing, I've explained this in my last slide, but I'll explain it again. A lot of people are acting like this relationship between the United States and Venezuela in regards to their oil is something new. It is not. As a matter of fact, American companies found that oil, meaning that Venezuela did not even know that that oil existed. American companies found that oil. And what they did was they cut a deal with Venezuela because Venezuela did not have the resources nor the infrastructure to refine it because it's crude, very heavy, and dirty oil, right? So they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the equipment, the machinery, none of that. So the United States cut a deal with them that, first of all, we were their primary buyer of their oil, right? And then we sold the oil and split the profits with them. Under that agreement, Venezuela became the richest country in Latin America and the fourth richest country in the world. In the 1950s, Venezuela was the fourth richest country in the world at the time that the United States was refining their oil, buying their oil, and splitting profit from the sales of their oil. You mean to tell me, and I'm talking to the liberals here, because a lot of y'all don't know this, because y'all keep comparing apples to oranges. Y'all keep comparing this situation with Iraq that's on the other side of the world, in the Middle East, different culture. We haven't had an amicable business relationship with them when it comes to drilling and refining oil. Two completely different histories, different cultures. Y'all keep comparing it like it's the same thing, and it's absolutely not, because we've been here before with it. Venezuelans have been there before with us. A lot of them are still alive to remember the golden years. That's why a lot of them have absolutely no problem with the United States taking Maduro out and these U.S. companies coming back in to refine the oil, because it's already happened. And at this point, anything is better than what they're dealing with now. When the United States was refining Venezuelan oil. Venezuelans had electricity. They had running water. They're highly educated. Even now, if I meet most of the Venezuelans that I meet here in Latin America, speak at least a basic level of English. And they know a lot of like American culture. I call them the Americans of South America because they are. They are. We're much more culturally alike to Venezuelans than we are to people of other. And not that we don't have things in common with other countries, but you will notice the difference when you start talking to a lot of the Venezuelans who had to flee due to economic hardships. They are educated. It doesn't give third world country. It doesn't. This is very much a manufactured situation on behalf of their socialist governments that they voted in. So anyway, like I said, Venezuela was the fourth richest country in the world in the 50s when the United States was refining their oil. Then we move into the late 1970s, going into the 80s, and they nationalized the oil. Moving forward towards like the late 90s, like in the 90s, they nationalized it even more. Only this time they stole under Hugo Chavez. They stole American equipment and kicked the American oil companies out. So basically, they reneged on all the deals and negotiations that they had with the American companies, stole their equipment, and the American companies lost their investments. That's what happened. Then what happened with Hugo Chavez, here's where the socialism comes into play. Hey, what's up, girl? Good to see you. We was just talking earlier. Y'all, we were talking earlier because I posted a picture on my Instagram. I'm going to have to show it to y'all. So I was doing some research and I found a picture of young Nicolas Maduro, and he was fine. He was a looker, okay? If he looked like that today, I promise you women all across the globe would be writing him letters. Letters like they did Ted Bundy. But anyway, so basically what happened is, this is where he really messed up. He might have got away with stealing the equipment and the oil rigs and all of that. But what happened is Hugo Chavez enacted all of these socialist programs where they were getting a lot of free money, government assistance. And so if you talk to a lot of Colombians will tell you Venezuelans used to come to Colombia and spend money. They would come and drop money, kind of like how Americans will come to Colombia and drop money now. No, back then it was the Venezuelans coming, dropping money. They used to like, wow, these people have so much money. And it's because they were getting so much welfare. The problem with socialist programs and government assistance, and this is why people can hop on that train, is that it works at first. It works. Gracias, mi amor. It works, okay? At first it works, especially when you're in a time of economic prosperity and you have all of this free-flowing money. So then when it's a situation where, oh, we have free healthcare, free childcare, free food in the grocery store, government-run grocery programs, but guess what happens? Eventually you over-leverage your money. So what happened was the price of oil dropped dramatically and the economy came crashing down because Venezuela is an oil-dependent economy. It came crashing down under Hugo Chavez. Inflation rose to over 200%. Then it got to the point where they're waiting in long lines at the grocery store, hours and hours to get some flour, to get some butter. Then Maduro got in office and continued these policies. And not just continued these policies, now you have a situation where the government is enacting a reign of terror on its own people to consolidate power. Now their civil liberties are being restricted. They can't speak up or they're going to go missing. Then you have a situation where you have a leader that is mismanaging funds. Now, I'm going to explain this to you. Part of the reason why Donald Trump decided to make a move now is because Nicolas Maduro, first of all, he gave away a lot of free oil. So that's another thing. You have your country starving. Its citizens are starving. They're eating out of trash cans. 1/3 of the country has had to leave, and you're giving away free oil to countries like Cuba. Because a long time ago, they wrote a check that they're behind can't cash. And people can talk about colonialism, imperialism, whatnot, but if you have an economy where it was only that, for example, island economies are either based on plantation crops or tourism. They have to do one of those. If you don't have any tourism coming onto the island, the economy is gonna fail. If your people don't want to go pick plantation crops, which is the whole reason why those islands were colonized and developed to begin with, then the island is not going to make money. It just is what it is. Anyway, I don't want to, am I rambling, y'all? Are y'all following what I'm saying here? Okay, so then they begin to repressively crush the rights of the people. And this is why I will always be a Second Amendment supporter, because even right now, I've seen videos of Maduro's thugs going around arresting people who are celebrating his arrest and threatening to unalive them and unattack them. But in a situation where you have an armed population, stuff like this is far less likely to happen, or the people can at least fight back. They know not to come to Texas with that, which is why I will never understand, especially when you have these liberal states who like to talk trash about conservative states, especially border states. We need our weapons. That's the only thing that keeps the cartels from overrunning the United States. People know if they invade the United States, it's going to be a bloodbath for them. They think twice. They wreak that havoc and terror on their own unarmed populations. Hey, what's up? How are you today? Happy New Year. I didn't tell y'all that. Happy New Year. Okay, so I was just giving y'all a rundown on the history of the United States with the Venezuelan oil. Okay, y'all hit the like button. Now, this is a situation where we're having a lot of arguments about things that, to me, are trivial. So I was talking to a liberal, and she was basically trying to make a moral argument that we should help them for the sake of helping them, and that it's wrong for us to expect any oil out of it. Absolutely not. First of all, let's be clear. Venezuela had begun selling that oil to Russia. Why is that a problem? Well, we have sanctions on oil. We have sanctions on Russia. Sanctions only matter to the degree at which you can enforce them, in which they cause pain. Russia is in a war right now, war that American taxpayers are spending money on in Ukraine. The Democrats support us being involved in that war. They do. Okay, so if we have sanctions on a country that can find a workaround on those sanctions via a country on our hemisphere, in our backyard, don't you think it makes sense for us to put a stop to that? Not just that, we have this situation brewing with China and Taiwan. China just made a $100 billion deal with Venezuela to buy their oil up. They're about to lose their investment. So you have a situation where we have competing world powers on our side of the globe making deals in regard to this oil that would undermine our leveraging power as a country. A lot of people might not think that that is important. Or you might say, oh, well, that's imperialism. What do you think that the Chinese and the Russians are doing? Do you think, especially, I don't even want to get into that. So they're doing the same thing. And as long as we let this continue, it is eating at our leverage and negotiating power. And a lot of Americans don't think stuff like that is important. And the reason why you don't think stuff like that is important is because our military and our government has made you so comfortable and made you feel like you're in such a bubble that we are untouchable, and we haven't really had to deal with a crisis bad enough to make you think otherwise. For example, a lot of Americans, this is why our governments lie. When it's a situation over oil, when they want to go to war over oil, I think personally, people can think I'm wrong or I'm evil for it. I think it's a perfectly legitimate reason to go to war. You just can't say that. You just can't say it because it sounds bad. It makes you feel dirty. It makes you feel the ick. I understand. But think about it like this. What if there was an oil shortage in the United States? Think about what happened during the Reagan administration. What happens when you can't put oil in your car? You're going to look for somebody to blame, and it's going to be the president. Why didn't they do something? Well, people, this is the some things that they do. Oil is a very important bargaining tool. What happens when you go from paying $3 a gallon for a gallon of gas to now you're paying 8 or 10? Y'all get real tight. I've seen how y'all get when there's a 50-cent or $1 increase. But yet people like to demonize the president, or they like to demonize the people in power when they do what they can to make sure that we're shoring up our oil reserves and that we have control over what's going on in the oil market at a global level. But when you actually have to deal with the consequences of our leaders not being cutthroat in their oil negotiations, you lose your damn mind. I was talking to this woman and she was like, it doesn't make you a cool person because you don't have feelings about it. And just because we can do it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And I'm looking at this woman, she's 300 pounds. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's going to be mean. Ma'am, if you had to go a day without your little Debbie snack cake because the 18-wheelers could not deliver them to your local grocery stores, you will lose your mind. What are we talking about here? So I have absolutely no problem with Donald Trump saying that, yes, this is about the oil. He said it in his initial press conference. We're going to get rich. We're going to make a lot of money. They're going to make a lot of money. So it's not hidden. I don't understand why people keep arguing, especially liberals. Oh, this isn't about the Venezuelans. This is about the oils. Yeah, yes, it is. It is. Next. What else is there to talk about? Okay, I'm going to pull up some more videos of people reacting. Oh, this is a good one.
Venezuelans are happy and celebrating, but Americans are mad. I find it so interesting how different their reaction is. And at least online, it seems like the majority of Americans are mad on the behalf of Venezuelans, but then Venezuelans are happy.
Americans are not upset on behalf of Venezuelans. Americans are upset on behalf of Americans because our government is dragging us into something that happened to us 20 years ago when we invaded Iraq. Americans have a very complicated relationship with America interfering and mingling with foreign nations because in our lifetime, nothing good has ever come from it.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is really irritating me, something that the liberals are doing this. And part of this has to do with, and I understand, I'm not trying to call anybody stupid. Most people don't understand or they don't study world affairs. Their entire point of reference is, especially like people like liberals, they read books about how they're being oppressed. And then most people have a high school level. Maybe they took U.S. history 1 and 2 in college. That's about it. Now, let me be clear, and this is not me trying to this is not me trying to flaunt my education or anything. I'm just laying down some credentials here. Okay. I majored in political science. I minored in history. Geography was my third field of study. I was a history teacher. And I had a social studies certification. And not just that, I've always, like, this stuff interests me, right? So it's so interesting to me that they are always comparing this to Iraq, right? When we have precedent in our own hemisphere, like Noriega and Panama. You know, y'all let me know in the comments if you've been to Panama. So the United States went and got Noriega, who was a narco trafficker leader of Panama, took him up out of here and prosecuted him. And Panama, if you go to Panama now, it's a very United States friendly country. They have a dollarized economy. You can go over there and spend American dollars. Panama used to be a part of Colombia, but we basically helped them become their own country so that we could build the Panama Canal because Colombia wouldn't let us do it. And Panamanians, for the most part, are very happy that they are not a part of Colombia. Then you have to understand when you're dealing with cultures, that matters too. So if you go to the Middle East, they're already highly fractured, right? First of all, there's a lot of infighting over religion. There's a lot of tribalism versus when you go to countries in Latin America, they have a more cohesive culture. So you're dealing with completely different elements. Not just that, logistically, it makes more sense because it's closer. It's closer. We don't have to spend the same amount of money and resources and time trying to handle this situation over here because it's in our own backyard. So they're comparing apples to oranges, and it makes absolutely no sense. But because these people don't know, and honestly and truly, even if you told them, they would try to figure out some type of mental gymnastics to make what they're saying make sense. I was watching Asmongold the other day, and he has a theory that Iraq and Afghanistan lasted as long as they did because it was intentional. It was a way to continue to, for the military industrial complex to continue to funnel money, that those wars weren't supposed to end. But you see, when Trump wants to get something done, he gets it done rather quickly. So we have the full military capability to exert our will. It's just a matter of what is the purpose? What is the goal?
Rinse, wash, repeat cycle of America is to invade a nation, say it's to stabilize them, topple their government, instill a ruler that they deem is favorable to America.
Yeah, but Venezuela is already destabilized. And that's the point that they're missing. This is not a situation where we have a dictator in office that is unfriendly to America, but they're stable. For example, we can talk about Russia. Russia is, you know, we kind of have a love-hate relationship with them, mostly hate, but Russia is stable. You don't have Russians starving right now and fleeing their countries for better opportunity. They have a pretty solid economy over there. It's completely different in Venezuela, where people are coming up missing. People are coming up missing, having their organs sold on the black market, eating out of trash cans. The average monthly salary in Venezuela is less than $1 US. Then all the narco trafficking, they can't speak up against their own government. So like the United States can't destabilize that region even more than what it already is. 1/3 of the country is already left. And they're continuing to leave every day. So it's already destabilized.
And then leave the country. And they usually leave taking money, assets, gold, or access to commodities or favorable contracts. I'm in the Dominican.
I don't see anything wrong with that. Y'all let me know. Y'all might feel differently than me. Let me see if I can refresh my comments. Y'all feel free to comment. Feel free to disagree. If you disagree, I already said I'm gonna let some of y'all come up here and speak at the end of the live. I don't see anything wrong, especially in this particular situation with Venezuela, with the United States saying, we're gonna come and we are going, this man that has been mass unaliving y'all, oppressing you for years, you can't speak your mind. We're going to take him out of power and we are going to put somebody in place that is going to be a better steward of your resources and a better steward of the economy to where you don't have to eat out of trash cans anymore. And in return, we want profits from the oil. What is wrong with that? Y'all let me, do y'all think we're supposed to go around doing stuff like that for free? Because it cost us, it cost the American taxpayer. Y'all please hit the like button. It cost the American taxpayer. It cost our armed services, it cost them their lives at times. It's not free. I don't know where people got this idea that the United States of America is supposed to go around doing charity work. First of all, we already give the most money to the UN. When they went through and broke down how much money we were giving to these other countries in USA, y'all, we were funding women's clinics in Africa, paying for transgender plays in Colombia. So we already give away so much free money. A lot of it which is laundered. But why do people expect the United States to come? This is what people expect us to do. They expect us to come in and save the day and leave empty-handed. And they expect us to do that in every single situation. That's not how this goes. And then you got to ask yourself, would their country do it for us? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I don't see anything wrong with us getting something out of the deal. We got to stop being childish. That doesn't make America evil. You don't accumulate the amount of wealth and prosperity that the United States has accumulated being stupid and letting people take advantage of you over a very long period of time. Eventually, you're going to get yourself into trouble like that. Also, it requires resources to run a country. Manufacturing requires raw material and minerals. There are certain minerals and raw materials. A lot of y'all walking around with that iPhone. Do y'all think it comes out of thin air? No. Raw materials have to be mined. These chips that go in these phones, do y'all think it falls off? That's what I'm saying. This is the hypocrisy of these liberals. And then they'll say, oh, well, we have to live in this society. No, you don't. You can go get lost in the Appalachian woods. There's plenty of people that do. The United States is so big. If you feel like the Native Americans live better and more purely, you can go get, like, you come to South America and get lost in the Amazon if you want to. If that's how you don't want to be a part of society.
Public right now. And as someone who's here and as someone who has an intimate relationship with Haiti, let's talk about the island of Hispaniola. The first time America invaded Hispaniola was 1913. They came to Haiti to stabilize. They then came to the Dominican Republic in 1914 to stabilize. Over the course of the next century, there were multiple governments backed by America, multiple administrations backed by America, multiple oustings and coup d'etats backed by America. I want to talk about two leaders in particular. I want to talk about Trujillo, a dictator in the Dominican Republic, who calls irrevocable damage to Dominican culture, psyche, people. He killed babies. He killed Black Dominicans. He thought they were Haitian. He was anti-Haitian. He is a monumental figure in Dominican's history, but he was backed by America. Then I want to talk about Aristide, and Aristide is a good example because it's an example of how America cherry picked a person that they liked, and then when that person fell out of line, they then supported a coup against him. They supported and gave money to people to destabilize the country once again, so they could stay here and put in the leader that they favored.
Like with all things, with the occupation of Haiti, the central bank got transferred to Citibank, and then Citibank transferred all of Haiti's gold reserves to New York and their coffers, which then helped Citibank grow exponentially. So once again, enter the nation, destabilize the nation, take control of the.
Okay, so I've talked about Haiti before. I'm not too sure about the history of the Dominican Republic. I have to look into that. But like, he's not giving you the full story with Haiti. A lot of Haiti's problems is self-inflicted. It has to do with a lot of their corrupt leaders selling out their people to these companies, making bad deals. So they've had a long history. You can't, when somebody pre-United States intervention and post-United States intervention has had the history that Haiti has, they have had a long history of corruption and mismanagement. You can't just blame the United States or U.S. companies for that. This is how these companies work. They are going to work on their behalf, and if you allow them to take advantage of you, they're going to take advantage of you. Period. Okay, let's continue. Give me 1 second. Oh, okay. I like this lady's video.
All right, let's talk about the world's reaction to the United States capturing Maduro and his wife and extraditing them to New York to stand trial on drug and terrorism charges. Because boy, we have a lot of reactions. I spent my career at the CIA and NSA. I also advised other intelligence agencies. I now have my own corporate intelligence firm. All these opinions are my own. Okay, so I've seen some people in my comments talking about how we bombed Venezuelan civilian areas, but that's not true. We bombed their military bases. In my opinion, it was to take out their capabilities that could come after us once we did capture Maduro so that our military would remain safe. The Venezuelan people are celebrating. They are no longer under this dictator, someone that they did not vote in. They are hoping that the United States can help get their oil industry back up and running, which was a huge part of their economy, and Maduro let it just go to shit. But the world is not happy with the way that this went down. Most countries knew that he was a horrible dictator, but they're claiming that this broke international law. Venezuela's a sovereign state, and for us to go in and kidnap and capture the leader, not a good look internationally. Argentina has been one of the only countries to come out and be like, hell yeah, I stand behind.
Shout out to President Milei. Shout out to President Milei of Argentina. As a matter of fact, I have been thinking about moving to Argentina. I shall see. I'm going to go back to Colombia for a while, but I've actually been thinking about it because it's easier to like get a long-term visa there. So not just that, culturally, I think it would be a really good fit for me. But anyway, shout out to President Milei. We have a really good relationship with them down there in Argentina. At one point, that could be a whole video in itself. Argentina was also at one point the America of South America before Venezuela had its economic rise. But anyways, that's a topic for another conversation. Here's the thing. A lot of people from other countries, they hate the United States because we can exercise an amount of power and leverage that they don't have. So people are going to hate that this was done just because the United States did it. Period. They're going to hate everything that we do. They're going to bash every single thing that we do. And there's nothing that we can do about it. I think y'all underestimate how much people hate the United States. And people can say, oh, it's because we're imperialists, because we're colonialists. No, at the end of the day, The United States, for the capabilities that we have, practices a lot of restraint. If you were to give overnight the leaders of a lot of these other countries the resources that and the power and the leverage that the United States has, they would go buck wild. Imagine giving the leader of Nigeria overnight the bank account, the US Treasury, military, intelligence capabilities. So the nerve of them, I especially hate it when I hear like German. I was like on this girl's post and Germans were talking mess about Americans, and I'm like, not you. Because when y'all had the military might and the opportunity to, y'all tried to take over the whole of Europe twice. When I hear people from England, not y'all, because when you have the capability to, y'all were an imperialist country. The Spanish and the Portuguese too. For those of y'all who don't know, Japan, the people that live in Japan now, those are not the original people of Japan. Those islands got colonized and they dang near unalived all the indigenous people there. Yeah, it happened over there in the East too. So my point is, when other people have had the capability to do so, to be on top, they were on top. So it's just what comes with the territory, y'all. Y'all hit the like button, please. That helps people know that I'm on live. So people are going to hate that this happened just because it's the United States. And quite frankly, they can't do anything to us about it. People keep screaming international law, international law is not real. Do you know who international law is for? It's for poor countries. Don't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me because I said the quiet part out loud. International law only matters to the degree that you can enforce it. Who is going to check the United States? Who? The only two countries that are even capable of attempting to do it are China and Russia. But they can't do it because of mutually assured destruction. Let's be clear. The only reason why the United Nations still exists today is because of the policy of nuclear non-proliferation. And for those of y'all who don't know what this is basically the world powers trying to stop smaller nations from obtaining nuclear warheads. That's it. That's it. That's the only reason why it exists. So all of these liberals and people in other countries shouting international law, it's not real. A law is only real to the degree that it has teeth and it can be enforced.
This, the rest are just kind of like, wish it didn't happen like this. Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, Colombia, they're all condemning it, which we knew they would. Iran is a little more threatening in how they're reacting. China isn't happy, but they also had diplomats there meeting with Maduro a day or two prior. So if the tables were turned, we would not be happy either. Russia has not been as threatening, which is interesting. More to come on that though. Europe is pissed at us. Democratic senators are pissed. Apparently, Trump told Congress that if he was going to use military force, he would at least inform them, and he didn't. Europe is saying we broke international law and set a danger.
You can't tell first of all, you can't tell these Congress members because they leave right and do a press conference. And the Democrats, as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats in Congress, they're the ops. Like, these are the type of people who call and, oh, ISIS coming. Like, anything that Donald Trump wants to do, they sabotage it. So why would he inform them? Furthermore, they're trying to pass this resolution in Congress right now to try to prevent Donald Trump from taking further action in Venezuela without congressional approval. You don't need another act of Congress. What you need to do is ask Donald Trump if he's seeking a declaration of war. And then, we have the War Powers Act. We have all these acts already. We don't need to pass another one. Ask him if he's seeking a declaration of war and cast a vote on it. Here's the thing. Congress loves to talk shit and make it seem like the president needs to come to them and ask for authorizations about war. But secretly, they love it when they don't have to cast an official vote on the books about war. Think about it. We're still holding senators accountable to this day for their votes that they took on the Iraq war. They don't like going on the record. They just like to publicly pretend that they do. And then behind the doors, behind closed doors, they will be making their investments in the stock market and these American companies that are going to go into Venezuela and rebuild that oil industry up, because they're going to have all the insider information. So as far as I'm concerned, I really don't want to hear anything Congress has to say about it. Work on getting legislation that will make the lives of everyday American citizens better passed. Work on that first.
Precedent, which I don't disagree with. It's tough because it's like we can continue to talk the talk and then not walk the walk if we have to about everyone else and their reactions, but also that's how the world works, alliances, etc. So us pissing off our allies, hoping that we're in diplomatic overdrive right now, making those relationships better. But you know who hasn't come out and said anything? The blue and white country. I don't like that because that makes me think they were behind this. And anything they're behind, I just get a bad feeling about. Stay tuned. All right, let's talk.
Now, we know who she's talking about when she says the blue and white country. I'm going to say that too. So there is a conspiracy theory going around that Donald Trump is trying to overthrow Maduro so that he can put a Zionist leader into power in Venezuela. Let's be clear. Whoever becomes the next leader is probably going to be a Zionist and in support of that country, right? It just is what it is. I don't know what that country has over us. I saw CNN did a segment where they admitted that a girl, I'm going to have to do it on another live, probably tomorrow, not this one. One of Donald Trump's workers, the reason why Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein fell out is because one of the girls that worked at Donald Trump's spa came back and told the manager that Jeffrey Epstein tried to pressure her into having sex, and she felt uncomfortable. And the manager called Donald Trump, and it was it. They fell out after that. So CNN went and admitted that on live. I keep telling y'all, I don't think that Donald Trump is a pervert or that he was messing with little kids, nor has he been accused of that. What he has said is that he thinks whatever is in those files would embarrass the country. It's too embarrassing for the country. And now that I think about it, and he is very much somebody who cares about posturing. He cares about how we are viewed on the world stage. He doesn't want us to seem weak in front of our enemies. I could actually believe that that is enough to keep him on the hook for whatever Israel has us on the hook for. With that said, that doesn't mean that the situation is not going to be beneficial for Americans. Now, y'all have heard me say opposite when we're talking about the situations going on in the Middle East. This is a completely different scenario. We've been here before. We have precedent for it. And I think it will work out quite. Y'all, Have I been muted this whole time? I'm not gonna go back and say what I was saying. Y'all please hit the like button. Okay. I'm gonna react to a couple more TikToks over the video, over this situation. And then I am going to move on to our next topic, which is a lot of Americans are stranded in the Caribbean, in particular Puerto Rico, because the airspace in the Caribbean has been shut down. And they're going to be stuck there for a couple of weeks. Okay, let's see what this guy says.
I can tell you that the majority of good people in South America are celebrating the capture of President Maduro from Venezuela. This is very, very good news.
It's not. It's not good news. No matter how bad Maduro was for the country, and no matter how much people are celebrating this is not good news. And I'm not talking about whether Maduro should or should not be president of Venezuela. I want you to set that aside for a second, because what I'm talking about is the method. This is not good news because once
I'm sorry, that is a stupid argument to me. The method. What is the problem? The way these liberals talk, they think life works like this. You have a dictator, you put an arrest warrant out on them because of crimes that they've committed against your country. Again, this arrest warrant was issued under the Biden administration. This is not just some trumped up charges that Donald Trump thought of himself, right? So you have an arrest warrant for a dictator. They feel like the dictator is just supposed to give himself up. Oh, as a matter of fact, you're right. I'm gonna give myself up and come to the United States and stand trial in a country that's not mine for all the things that I did. That's not how life works. Not if you're dealing with anybody of intelligence. You're gonna have to come get me. So all of this, the method, either way it goes, somebody was going to have to go in there and go get him because he was not stepping off of Venezuelan soil. So what do they mean? Not just that. It was said, Trump said the Delta Force, they were shot at. And they managed to bring Maduro home to the United States alive. And there are plenty other examples where other U.S. presidents have went into a country and unalived a dictator. Donald Trump brought Nicolas Maduro to the United States alive to stand trial. So what do you mean it's the method? What other way was he supposed to do it?
you accept a standard where all it takes is for any foreign government with enough military power to say that guy is bad about any president of any other country to justify unilateral, unauthorized military action to capture that president and then install a makeshift government to run the country in interim. Once you accept that standard, you just accepted the far west where anything is allowed as long as a country has enough military power. Because
well, sir, whether you like it or not, that's the reality of the situation. That's the reality of the situation. If Russia were to capture President Zelensky today, he would just have to stay captured. Because Russia has enough military power, and they might not have a military as good as ours, but they have nukes. So the only thing that we would do is put sanctions on them. We'd have to tread lightly. That's the reality of the situation, sir. This is the problem that I have with a lot of liberals. They are childish in their thinking. Whether or not I accept that as the standard is irrelevant. That's the reality of the situation. And there's absolutely nothing that I or anybody else can do about it. Quite frankly, yes, countries with enough military power can go in and get the leader of a weaker country. That is why it is of utmost importance for us to make sure that we don't become a weaker country. I know that this sounds Machiavellian and Darwinian. It's the reality of the situation. I did not write the rules. I just observe them and report them to y'all. That's it. That's all. Guys, y'all please hit the like.
This is not about the good guys against the bad guys. This is about ignoring international laws of conflict because you have a military that's big enough to do it. And it's easy to prove. If that standard is acceptable, does Pakistan sending troops to capture the president of India become acceptable? What about China sending troops to the United States? Does that become acceptable? Does Colombia sending troops to...
Well, China is not going to send troops to the United States because that would be stupid. We've shored up our power. Now, first of all, one of the most brilliant things that the United States has going for it is that it has an armed citizenry. So we're difficult to invade. We have superior technology to the Chinese. Matter of fact, their radar systems that Maduro used couldn't even detect when they went in and got him, didn't even detect our planes. Hey, what's up, Eddie? Good to see you. Thank you for popping in. But yeah, that's absolutely how it works. If India's president went and got the Pakistani president, well, I mean, we could overpower them, but then we'd have to think, what if they set some nukes off? We have more nukes than them. We could nuke them to oblivion, but then that would cause problems for us because of nuclear fallout. So yeah, this is how this works. What part are they not understanding? This is why the United States moves the way that it does. This is why Donald Trump saw it of the utmost importance to get Russia and China out of Venezuela, as well as the Iranians are there. Maria Machado put it all on blast of all the anti-American organizations that have set up camp in Venezuela. And Donald Trump said, oh no, not in our back door. Absolutely not. Another part of this, see, people are acting like, oh, the drugs are just a cover for the oil. No, he's admitted to the oil being a motivator. He did. He said it in several press conferences already. It's not a secret. It's not an I got you moment. It's not that. But y'all have to understand, Maduro was only extracting enough oil to bankroll his administration, not to fund the country because he didn't care about the people. His primary source of revenue was coming through the form of drug money and human trafficking. Much of that money was extracted from the United States. Do you know in Venezuela, if you want to send money back to Venezuela, the Venezuelan, you want to, send a remittance, the Venezuelan government automatically takes a percentage. All money from the United States doesn't move in Venezuela unless it goes through the Maduro administration. So the drug part was a big deal because if you cut the drug money off, you cut the funding. No matter what he does, they will always complain about the orange man bad. It's Trump derangement syndrome. And you know what it is? I feel like this is about their personal identity at this point. They want to feel like they're good people. See, when they hear me say stuff like that, a liberal was like, I can't believe you're talking like this and you have a daughter. What do you mean? Do you think that I want my daughter growing up in a country that's not safe? Do you think I want my daughter to ever be in a situation where enemies of the United States have leverage over us or have one up on us? Because if you've seen the consequences of that, you would understand why it's imperative that we keep ourselves and our children out of that situation. There's a lot of people, I think people underestimate. Once you get to the top, People hate you, no matter how benevolent and reasonable you try to be with them. Because again, like I said before, if any other country were in the position of the United States, you better believe that they would not be as good of a steward as we are. They would not show as much restraint. Staying in Somalia, al-Shabaab gets his cut and he runs terrorist things out there. Yeah, that's how it was going. So all of it is important. People are trying to make it seem like, oh, this was just the oil thing and the drugs were just the front. No, it's all of that. The drugs were funding the regime, the human trafficking funding the regime. And then on top of that, hundreds of thousands of Americans getting unalived every year. So as far as I'm concerned, this was a way to knock out multiple birds with one stone. And I don't see anything wrong with that. People who are trying to make it an either or situation, they're not seeing the bigger picture here.
Remove the new Venezuelan installed government. Is that acceptable? Because these are all scenarios that fall in line with your.
Yeah, it is more acceptable. I'll be completely honest. If Venezuela, this is going to sound so messed up, but it's like you have to think about where the people are at now. If we can put the Venezuela, we can get somebody in there that's United States friendly, who is not going to allow Russia, China, and Iran and any of these militant groups to be doing military exercises and plotting and scheming against the American people on there. So if you can get somebody in there that's not going to do that, if you can get somebody in there that is going to put the Venezuelan people to where they have stocked grocery stores, to where they don't have to eat out of the trash can, to where they have electricity and clean running water, if you can get them a return back to the glory days, but this person just happens to be an American puppet, that's a much better situation than allowing what they have been going through to continue in the name of not violating international law. No, Democrats only bring that up because they want to tie Donald Trump's hands so that they can render him ineffective. Here's the problem with Democrats. They are so used to their leaders promising everything and offering absolutely and doing absolutely nothing about the situation that they can't stand to see that the right voted for somebody who is making good on a lot of his promises. I'm not saying all. Y'all know I made my criticisms of Donald Trump on this channel. But they can't stand the fact that when Donald Trump says he's going to do something, 9 times out of 10, it gets done. When they have had to deal with years of Democrat leadership and the excuses that come along with why they can't do what they said they're going to do. Because there's always an excuse. Obama had a supermajority of Democrats during his first term and could only manage to pump out that sorry ass Obamacare.
Good news. Celebrating this as a good thing means celebrating lawlessness, no matter how good the end result may seem. Territorial integrity is the most sacred.
No, I disagree with that. I disagree with that. To allow something terrible to go on in the name of following the law, it's irresponsible, it's negligent, and it's cowardly. If Democrats are saying it's bad, like this is what I'm saying, they're all lip service. This is all they do. They understand breaking the law when they are attacking ICE agents because they're operating under the delusion that they're doing the right thing. They understand that it's fine to break the law then. It's fine for a judge to help an illegal immigrant sneak out of the courthouse. It's fine then. But when we're talking about mass starvation, child trafficking, people eating out of trash cans, people not being able to have basic freedoms like what we have, which is freedom of speech, speak up against your government. When we're talking about those types of things, all of a sudden it's international law. International law that isn't even real because it doesn't apply. It don't apply. It don't apply. It don't apply. It don't apply. Sorry to tell you, if Venezuela could get a bit of stabilization in affordable food prices and inflation countermeasures that would attract many to come back to build their country back. Let me tell you something. When Venezuela is safe to go to, because believe it or not, there are already Americans that live in Venezuela right now. As a matter of fact, the Maduro regime took some hostage. I didn't know if y'all heard about that, but like, I think a day or two before they came and got him, he took some Americans hostage. I think that was probably one of the straws that broke the camel's back. I don't know if they've been released. And Trump hasn't really talked about them, and I hope they're okay. But to be fair, he warned them to get out months ago. And as an American living in South America, I remember when I was coming here to Ecuador 2 months ago, I saw some Americans getting on a plane at the airport in Panama to go to Caracas. And I'm like, why would you be going there right now? You know, by then we already had the Navy sitting on the coast of Venezuela. Why are you going there, right? So I do feel bad for them. I hope they're okay. Probably not. But at the same time, you can't put the mission in jeopardy because folks didn't believe that fat meat was greasy when they were warm. Matter of fact, I knew at the beginning of the year, like this started heating up at the beginning of the year. Not, what did it bump that? If Donald Trump wasn't in office and it was Kamala Harris and absolutely nothing militarily was going to happen, I wouldn't go to Venezuela. I would not go to Venezuela right now. You're coming over there as an American with too much to lose and too much money. That is not safe. You're setting yourself up to get kidnapped and held ransom for money. That's not to talk bad about Venezuelan people. You're dealing with people who are in survival mode at this point. That's crazy. But yeah, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for investment. And I think the Venezuelan people will welcome that. A lot of them have culture, like culturally, they like to do business and open their own business. They're very capitalist. But they need a Bukele type of leadership running Venezuela. That's what they need right now. They really do. They really do.
Untouchable right in international law. And the only lawful way to address the Maduros of the world is through international coordination. And the only lawful way to use force is through the resolution of the UN Security Council. And this is not random law. It's the law that the United States is bound to. And
the United States is not bound to anything that people cannot make us do. This is delusional talk. We are not bound to that. You cannot be bound to enforce laws when you bankroll the UN. We pay the most money. The other countries don't pay their fair share. If we pulled out of the UN right now, it would not function in the same way that it's been functioning. The EU can barely keep it together. So what is he talking about? I don't understand.
that law was violated when unilateral force was used to breach a country's territorial sovereignty. And what you call good news creates a very dangerous precedent that is only acceptable to you because you happen to agree with the outcome. But once that precedent is set, the outcome becomes irrelevant. So results
Well, sir, here's the thing. This isn't the first time this has been done, and this won't be the last time. So, again, regardless of whether or not I agree with this or this lady that he's responding to agrees with it, the fact of the matter is the precedent has been set, and it was set a long time ago, not just with this act. And whether or not I think it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Whether or not Great Britain thinks it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They can't do anything about it. It's like we're arguing about stupid stuff. I'm going to show y'all something real quick. I'm going to react to a couple more videos before we switch topic. But, okay, y'all remember at the beginning of the live when I told y'all I was doing some research and I stumbled upon this picture. Y'all going to be mad at me, but I don't care. I stumbled upon this picture of Nicolas Maduro when he was young. Y'all, this man, he looked good. I ain't even going to hold you. He was fine. If this would have happened when he was looking like that, I'm not gonna lie, I would be in the streets with the Democrats in Oregon, marching and saying "Free Maduro." I sure would. I would. Absolutely. I would be putting money on his commissary. That man was handsome. Okay, it's always the fine men that are the worst. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, so I'm going to go to my Instagram channel because there were a couple other videos that I saved. I know this is a long live, but hopefully I'm keeping y'all entertained and interested. If you're liking the live, please hit like and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Okay. Oh, this guy, I don't agree with everything that he's about to say, but I do like his videos. So he is, I think he's Colombian by blood, but he is an American citizen who was in Colombia. So before I react to him, I actually do follow him, and he makes a lot of great content about Colombia if you're interested. His name on Instagram is andres.on.earth. Okay, and he makes great content. He does a lot of charity work in Colombia. For Christmas, he donated a lot of beds to poor Colombians that live in the barrios. He's always trying to show interesting history. Like, he's not a passport bro that goes down there just to sleep with propagos down there. It's not that. Like, he really loves the people and the culture, and he does a lot of education. Okay, now, yeah, I know you see it. I know y'all seen how fine that man was. Okay, we can hate the actions while acknowledging that Maduro was a good-looking man. But anyway, so I'm gonna play this video that he posted was it today? Yeah. Hold on. Hold on 1 second.
United States bombed Venezuela's most important ports, military bases, and captured Nicolás Maduro. So before we get into my analysis of this situation, I want to be clear that I'm not defending Maduro. I have family that lives in Venezuela and that has lived in Venezuela for decades. I know you had to have lived there to really fully understand the struggle, but I remember speaking to my family members in 2015, 2016, when there was no food in the grocery store, where it was like a 3-hour line just to get some flour or a loaf of bread, when there was no gas in the gas stations, and people's life savings devalued and turned into nothing. And seeing on the news all the riots and all the people who were disappeared by the government, we're not trying to defend this guy by any means. So Maduro is being tried for charges related to narco and weapons. And I think we all know the real reason why the United States wants a friendly leader in Venezuela. And I think everybody knows. I don't really even got to say it.
What? Huh? Oil?
Who said something about, oh, bitch, you cooking?
When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door.
The U.S. really cared about combating and narco. Then why did Donald Trump pardon Honduran ex-president Juan Orlando Hernandez?
I'm so glad that he brought up Orlando Hernandez. You know, it's obvious, very obvious why he got a pardon. So he got a pardon. He was sentenced to 45 years for narco trafficking. This is Honduras's president or ex-president. It's quite obvious why he got a pardon. He rolled on Maduro. That's why he got a pardon. Do y'all think Donald Trump just gave him that pardon for free? No, he gave up information. Do y'all understand? Maduro still has to go before the federal courts in the Southern District of New York. He has to be tried in front of a jury of Americans. They need evidence to ensure a conviction. I think that's part of the reason why Maureen Comey was fired. She did such a terrible job in the Diddy case that the Department of Justice was like, oh, baby, no, we can't have you in the courtroom when we put Maduro on trial. I think they were playing chess with that a long time ago. Y'all know she's suing the Department of Justice. But anyway, it's quite obvious that Hernandez rolled on Maduro. Not only did he roll on Maduro, but El Chapo's son, did y'all forget at the beginning of the year? El Chapo's son and his entire family were brought over to the United States, and he was going to snitch for immunity and protection. They're still over here. So it's quite obvious the answer to that question.
Who was convicted in a U.S. federal court for conspiring to smuggle 400 tons of snow into the U.S. And he was sentenced to 45 years in prison and was pardoned by Trump. You see the hypocrisy there? I hope nobody is naive enough to think that the United
No, Andres, that's not the hypocrisy. Okay, you let the little fish go to get the big fish. That's how the justice system has always worked. You think that this man is gonna know he has to do 45 years, and you think he's gonna come off of information for free? He's such a sweet guy. This boy is so sweet. Like, I'm saying boy because I think he's like in his early 20s. He's such a sweet guy. I don't even think he would think about that.
United States is the liberator of Venezuela and that things is just automatically going to get better. You know what I mean? I understand you're happy that this tyrant is out of power. I understand it. But don't celebrate yet, because this was not done with your well-being in mind, Venezuelan people. I'm talking to you. So will the transition of power be done with your well-being in mind? And I really hope, as a Colombian and as a human being, I really hope that Venezuela gets better. I really hope that people can make a decent living and can have good food to eat and can be happy in their country, man. Venezuelans love their country and they have a beautiful country, as they should, man. They have some of the most beautiful beaches, and Caracas is an awesome city, and they deserve to be able to live there and be happy in their own country. And I really just hope that this turns out for the best and that democracy will be restored in Venezuela. We'll be watching very closely how the United States handles this transition of power. Right now, Delcy Rodriguez, who was within Maduro's inner circle, was sworn in as the new president of Venezuela. So we're going to see if the U.S. is going to remove her and put in somebody who they've selected or who they agree with. We're watching closely. They have.
Honestly, I don't see anything wrong with his take. It's okay for people to be cautious because, to be honest, they're not out of the woods yet. Okay, you have Delcy. What's her name? Delcy Rodriguez. She's in the office right now. She was a part of Maduro's regime. She was talking fly at the mouth, saying they needed to release him. Now she's talking about peace. We don't know what type of pressure that she has on her from within the country. I saw Maduro's thugs on video riding through the streets. People were in, so they're not out of the woods yet, is what I'm trying to say. And we have a long way to go before that country gets stabilized. And I think it's perfectly reasonable, especially for Venezuelans, to say, we're going to wait and see. We're going to wait and see what happens. But in my opinion, it can't get too much worse. Worst case scenario for them is that things don't change. And I'll say this, the good thing about Trump having all this scrutiny on him in regards to this situation is that the administration has to get this right. The world is watching. We live in different times. This is the age of social media. And he has to get this right. You know, if this is the situation where Donald Trump said no wars, you're making a lot of promises in regards to this situation. You're saying it's going to stabilize quickly, and we want to see some results that are going to benefit both the American people and the Venezuelans. So I think it's a good thing that he has this scrutiny on him, because the only thing it's going to do is sharpen iron. The only thing it's going to do is make sure that he handles this situation correctly, because that's all it can do. Because let's be clear, the UN is not going to come get Donald Trump.
If you have moderate as your political affiliation.
It happened, and I'm sure y'all know.
Okay, guys, if y'all are just now coming in, please hit the like button. I'm going to get off of this topic right now. I'm going to talk about one more thing, and then I'm going, and it's going to be quick. I'm not going to take too long. And then I'm going to leave my link in the description box. Anybody watching, if you want to come on stage, matter of fact, I'm going to drop it now. And if you want to come on stage, I'll put you backstage, because I'm going to be quick. Now, you don't have to get on camera if you don't want to. You don't have to cam up. If you just want to come on here and talk and speak your piece, you can. The link is now in the description box. So at the end, I am going to open up the floor. You can come here, give your opinion. I promise I don't bite. I let people speak their mind. I'm very respectful. I promise you. So I've done this many times. So there it is. So if you want to come up, I'll have you backstage. Now, we're going to talk about the fact that there are a lot of Americans who are stranded in the Caribbean right now because the airspace over Puerto Rico has been shut down. And I know there are going to be a lot of people who are quick to say that they should have known that this is going to happen. But honestly, I don't think any of us knew that this was going to happen. And if you planned your vacation a month or 2 months in advance or a year in advance, you don't know when these people plan their vacation. They're just going thinking they're going to have a good time for New Year's. And I feel really bad for them, because imagine, like, most people be living that YOLO life, and imagine you only had enough money to get there and back, pay for your accommodations, pay for your food, and, you know, go home and get back to the rat race and the hustle and the grind. Or imagine you're already in trouble with your job for attendance and you have to physically go into work, and boom, this happens. Okay? Imagine, like, some people were probably on their last leg. Okay, so I'm going to get into it.
There's some panic, I think.
This is from the Daily Mail.
There's a moment of like, oh, you're like, oh my God, what? Our flight got canceled because of what happened with Venezuela, and they closed down the airport. There are flights that are like $2,000 for one way. My sister was on the phone for like 3 hours, and they rebooked us for this coming Saturday, like a week later. It totally affects everybody. I train teachers. We have kids with us. We're going to be missing a week of school. I mean, it's insane. There was some panic. I think there's a moment of like, you're like,
And the accommodations in Puerto Rico are not cheap. Like, that is not a cheap trip. It's a cheap flight. Well, now it ain't, but it's not a cheap trip.
Hi friends, Happy New Year. You might remember back in November, I was stuck in Miami because of the government shutdown. Well, now I'm stuck in Puerto Rico because of Maduro's capture and airspace being closed. We were supposed to fly from Vieques, where we are now, the small island, to Ceiba, which is on the main island of San Juan this morning, and then we were supposed to fly directly to Philadelphia to be back for work and for school on Monday. But unfortunately, we are still here in Vieques. We're now supposed to take a ferry to Ceiba tomorrow, but the problem is there are no flights that will get us to Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or New York until at least Friday. That's what we're being told. We hope that the airlines open up some flights and we're able to get home sooner than that, but we'll see. Interestingly, we are sort of where there has been a lot of action. Ceiba is a former naval station called Roosevelt Roads. It was closed about more than 2 decades ago, but recently reactivated. F-35 stealth fighters were sent there, cargo aircraft were sent there. It has been a major staging area for the pressure campaign against Maduro. And so it'll be interesting kind of to be there tomorrow. I'll have a full update for you. I'll try to post again. I'm also going to try to do an interview with Becca or Walter today to kind of give them a lay of the land of where we are here in the Caribbean. But that's what's happening. And I just hope that everyone is safe. And for other folks who are stuck in the Caribbean, I realize there are, far worse places to get stuck, but I know that everyone needs to get home to work and school and other obligations. I'm kind of worried about my dad because I normally, take care of him, but I do have that covered. So thank you to everyone at home who has offered to check in on him. I really appreciate it. And to those of you who are checking on him and bringing him food, thank you so much. And okay, that's it.
So, like, obviously, this sucks if you have other responsibilities to get back to and you don't have a way to cover it. But, like, for the people who needed an excuse to stay off of the job and they had enough money to, like, cover the rest of their, days that they didn't plan for to be there, this is like the best thing that could have happened. Like, it's probably the worst thing for some people and the best thing, because honestly, the Caribbean is not the worst place to be stuck if you have contingency plans, right? So yeah, this part really sucks. And I mean, that's the one thing about war, at best, it's inconvenient. At worst, it's life altering. And that's why you shouldn't do it unless there's an absolutely good reason to do it. And I already explained to y'all at the beginning of my video why Venezuela is of the utmost importance right now.
Y'all, it's a crying shame that y'all put that man in office. Now he done started some mess with Venezuela. Trump knows that daggone well that what he doing in that office is wrong. You got people stranded over there in Puerto Rico because you decided to bomb Venezuela in Puerto Rico. So now you got
This is what I'm talking about, how the masses of people they talk and they don't know. Now, I understand that this is an inconvenience. And if it were me, I would probably be very pissed. But ma'am, you cannot bomb Venezuela in Puerto Rico. It don't work like that. Furthermore, she's saying, you know what you're doing in this office is wrong, ma'am. You don't even know why he's doing what he's doing. And that's why I say when Americans feel a slight bit of discomfort, all hell breaks loose, which is even more reason why we should secure our oil reserve, our leverage with oil, our access to oil, our ability to use oil as a bargaining chip. Because at the end of the day, most of y'all's cars run on oil. Let Americans have to experience an oil shortage. All hell will break loose. When Americans have to pay $1.50 more for gas than what they usually do, they're ready to riot. They're talking about the administration, ready to go vote the administration out, all over discomfort. So, ma'am, I don't know why you think you're qualified to tell him what he's doing is wrong in this situation when you have absolutely no information. Yeah, it is unfortunate that these people are stranded and that the airspace is closed. Now, I would argue it's better for them to be stranded than get caught up in some crossfire. Now, moving forward, I think it's important for Americans to know this so that we can plan accordingly.
Young people traveling by themselves. I just seen a post, y'all. The young lady looked like she is terrified. She traveled by herself for her birthday, let alone it's her birthday, and she traveled alone. And now she is stuck and stranded and having to figure it out in Puerto Rico because y'all president wants to bomb Venezuela. Y'all president wants to bomb Venezuela from Puerto Rico. So now everybody that traveled to Puerto Rico to have a good time, to see the pretty water and everything, is now stuck.
This is what I talk about when I say a lot of Democrats, they appeal to the emotion and not the logic, right? If I have to choose between people being stranded in Puerto Rico for a couple of weeks and Iran not being able to practice military exercises on our hemisphere, right? When we are at odds with them, and Russia and China not having a foothold in Venezuela and having access to that oil, right? If I have to choose between that and people being uncomfortable, then I'm gonna choose that because long term that's more important. And I genuinely, like, I would hate to be in that situation, but y'all have to understand that's gonna pass, right? That and all the fallout that comes with it for those people, that 9 times out of 10, that is gonna pass. It is temporary discomfort. We can't put ourselves in a position to where we are vulnerable on a national security level. It just doesn't work like that. It can't work like that, right? I would rather them experience temporary discomfort if that means that we can stop some of this, a lot, I mean, all of it, really, the human trafficking that's going on through Venezuela. And if we could, in the long run, because those people are starving, you got to think about it. You have people that are in Puerto Rico, they're not going home, they're uncomfortable, but you have people in Venezuela starving and eating out of trash cans. Right? It's unacceptable. Biden decided to leave Afghanistan and all equipment and citizens, and now some young soldiers will never be back. So they never went back in and got them? They never went back in and got them? Hate how they never see the F-ups of their side. Eddie, they never went back in and got them?
So they might as well call the jobs, call their kids.
Afghanistan is the last place I want to be some grade A weirdos. The stuff I've heard those soldiers say that they do over there, to children. Let me tell y'all another place I don't want to go. Dubai. I don't care how glamorous it looks. I don't care how much these YouTubers show that Dubai chocolate. The only thing I would be thinking if I walked through Dubai, every time I looked at a man in Dubai, I would be like, oh my gosh, he likes to urinate on women. Like the stuff I would be thinking if I landed in Dubai, I don't even think I'd be able to enjoy a meal in Dubai. I would be so disgusted. Every time I saw a woman with a Birkin bag, I would be like, how many men's feces did she swallow to get that bag?
Is let them know, we'll be home next week or so. They don't even know when they're going to let planes fly over to get the people from Puerto Rico. Y'all, really? You want to bomb Venezuela from Puerto Rico, and now people are stuck. Y'all, like, repost, comment, tell me how you feel. If you know anybody affected.
You know what? I take back what I said earlier about her saying we bombing Venezuela from Puerto Rico. She just got her words mixed up, right? But again, this is somebody, I understand her getting on here, showing empathy and compassion for the people that are stranded. But her making it seem like that should take precedence over American national interests, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nobody's bigger than the program, man. Absolutely not. Especially if it's a situation where they're not necessarily, this is to keep them out of harm's way, to be honest. Financially, it's uncomfortable. And for some, it could be financially disastrous. And I really hate that for them. And this is why I do want this story to get out here, because we need to be thinking about this and planning ahead. Because I don't know if this is the end of this situation.
Yeah, with Grant. Yeah, my name is Grant. I came out here just to experience Puerto Rico for New Year's. Yeah, I just want to see how Puerto Rico was, and I had a good time. Nightlife in Puerto Rico was lit, bro. I'm not gonna hold you. But what's really going on is that Trump shit, bro. Like, this nigga, I woke up, I was supposed to go home today. I went to the airport like 6 in the morning. Them niggas talking about something. Yeah, bro. Flights canceled for 24 hours. What's it called? FAA? That's what it's called. They canceled it because, the government is using the airspace for the Caribbean to see if they're going to attack Venezuela or not, or if they're going to defend an attack. So, yeah, so I had to stay another week, but... So you with Grant?
Yeah, I mean, if you got the money to stay, Puerto Rico nightlife is the best. La Placita, oh my gosh, y'all. Puerto Ricans know how to party. They know how to dance. The music is good. So again, if you can afford it, it's not the worst place to be stranded. And honestly, certain things like I say, like food and Uber rides and things like that are not as expensive on the mainland. It's more so the accommodations, right? But I mean, anyway. Again, I feel bad for him, but it is what it is. This is more important. This takes precedent. And I wonder, like, could our generation survive if we had to deal with the inconveniences that came with World War, where they had to like ration and plant these victory gardens and conserve water? Like, if we had to pull together for the greater good and do without, could we? I don't think so. I don't know. I hope we could, but I don't know. Okay, guys, for those of y'all who are watching me, if you want to come give your opinion on anything that I said, I am going to give y'all some time to come up here. The link is in the chat box. You don't have to show your face on camera if you don't want to, if you're not all the way put together. If you want to come here and speak your mind, give your opinion about anything that I said, feel free to do that. Try your best to stay on topic as much as you can. Because me, I know I like to talk. I like to get going. But what I will say is I'm gonna be optimistically cautious. I'm going to be optimistically cautious about the situation. And I do think if you are a Trump supporter, it is your responsibility, me included, to make sure that we are holding his feet to the fire in terms of making sure that he does this correctly. People's lives are on the line. Our national security is on the line. And honestly, I never want to see us, kind of like the most important thing in this situation for me too is like, I never want to see a situation where there's such a humanitarian crisis in South America to where the southern border is open and people come flooding in, and that be used as a disguise to mass trafficking and child trafficking, like whether it's drugs or children. I mean, I feel like that was the worst thing that happened during the Biden-Harris administration. And what makes me the most upset is that Democrats ignore that part. You know, they like to talk about Epstein files, this Epstein files, that, when they never even cared about it to begin with. It's just used as, you know, they feel like they have one up on Donald Trump over it, but the majority of them have never even really done their research. If they did, they would know that nobody's ever accused Donald Trump of being inappropriate with him, right? Again, even CNN had to go on there and publicly admit that the reason why Donald Trump and Epstein fell out is because Epstein was inappropriate with one of the women that worked at his spa. And the manager called Donald Trump and told him, he's like, you're out of there. Okay? So anyway, that's the reason why they fell out, y'all. That is the reason why they fell out. It was on CNN. If you got an LB Nation news channel on LB Nation, he did a whole video on it. It was either today or yesterday. Again, guys, the live stream, the invite button is in the chat. If you want to come up and give your opinion about anything I'm saying, the link is in the chat. But the Democrats keep on talking about Epstein, and they don't care about the 500,000 children that went missing. Mayor Eric Adams even went on the record saying that there were thousands of migrant children that came into the New York system that are missing. He went on record, it's on camera, and they don't care. They don't want to hold the Biden-Harris administration accountable. Matter of fact, they want open borders. They want mass migration to continue. Every time I've ever brought this point up to a Democrat, y'all, they act like they didn't even hear what I said. They just completely ignore it and go on to the next topic. Like I never said anything. So if anything, I want that to stop. Okay, guys, it looks like nobody wants to come up. Y'all are a little shy tonight. On your way out, can you please like the video, share my video if you care, and also, comment on the replay. Let people know about me. If you want to leave a donation, my Cash App is Mariah Sincere, or you can donate on here on YouTube. You don't have to, but I be out here. For y'all, my throat hurts. So, if God puts it on your heart. But with that said, I'm going to get off of here. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see y'all back here tomorrow. Good night.